What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. My name is Briggs. I travel, I make videos, and I've never played with lawn darts responsibly. Really, that's how my younger brother lost his nipple. Living without a nipple is depressing, as you can imagine. Speaking of depression, did you know that there's thousands of reasons a person can be considered depressed? One of those reasons is where you live. The environment, the people, the economy, the crime, the weather are just some of the reasons a place can be considered depressing. So you're asking yourself, how do you decide which one of these cities is more depressing than the other? Well, you analyze everything you can find on the US Census data, including divorce, average income, unemployment. Then you look at things like I said, weather, homeless rates, and how often people swipe right on my cousin's ex-wife's Tinder profile. After that, you make an educated guess, and you come up with the most depressing cities. And that's what today's video is all about. So why don't you sit back, relax, take a deep breath, and watch my top 10 most depressing cities in America. Number 10, Tacoma, Washington. Washington is one of the rainiest states in the country. Tacoma is the third largest city in the state with just about 200,000 residents. Tacoma sucks from an emotional standpoint. The average US city gets about 205 days of sunshine a year. Tacoma gets about 140 days of sun. That's only about 4.5 months worth of sunshine every year. I've had longer breakups. You know, you break up with someone, about a week later you miss them and you can't remember why you broke up, so you get back together, and then 4 days in a row she spends 30 minutes of your morning explaining a dream she had, so you break up again only to revisit the whole situation a couple more dozen times. Gloomy skies and gloomy moods are always in fashion in Tacoma. The only thing this place has to keep it from going crazy is beer. They have really good beer up near Tacoma and Seattle. Anyway, the divorce rate in Washington State is about 3.9 per 1,000 people. That's 15% higher than the national average. It ranked 11th amongst the states that reported data on divorce. Number 9, Springfield, Missouri. Springfield is the third largest city in the state of Missouri with about 168,000 residents, and it's the birthplace of Route 66. It is also a place where people don't make the best decisions. Just this week, a young man walked into a Walmart wearing body armor, a loaded rifle, and a handgun just days after a couple mass shootings. One was at a Walmart. This young man was stopped by an off-duty firefighter and then arrested as a terrorist threat. He claims he was testing the rights to bear arms. What he was really testing was the patience of a very nervous society. He's lucky the off-duty firefighter didn't knock his teeth out. Springfield has a livability score of 65. Crime sucks, unemployment is high for these days, housing sucks, and schools aren't great. It is also the divorce capital of the state of Missouri. Good times in Springfield. Number 8, Mobile, Alabama. Mobile is a very depressing place to live. The average income here is about $23,000 a year, which is far less than the US average. This is why 25% of the population lives in poverty. That's right, a quarter of the population lives in poverty here. Education isn't a big priority. Of the residents who actually graduate high school, less than 30% went on to obtain a 4-year degree. The population that is 15 years or older in Mobile County, in which Mobile, the city, is in, is at 331,000 people. Of those people, 42,000 are divorced or have gone through the divorce process. I mean, I get it. It's hard to stay married in Alabama with all those great options you got going on over the border in Mississippi. The livability score in Mobile is 63. That's depressing. That's a really low number. A good number for livability is in the mid 80s and up. They're 63. I've seen some that are in the mid 40s, but 63 is bad. Number 7, Salem, Oregon. Salem is the state capital of Oregon with about 170,000 residents. It's easy to see how living in the state capital can be depressing. There's politics, occasional protests, your neighbors who want to discuss tough topics and then pick arguments about it. This is probably one of the reasons why most residents would like to move someplace else, like Cuba. Weather is a big factor here. Everybody knows that Oregon gets far too much rain and gloomy skies. Gray skies most of the year gives people seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD. SAD, season affect, you get it. Anyway, they didn't have that fancy term when I was a kid. We just called you a crybaby if you couldn't handle the weather. But then again, I grew up in Southern California, so we really didn't have weather. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. Salem is a depressing state capital. As a matter of fact, the Oregon State Capitol building is depressing. Look at that thing. It looks like a Soviet-era political prison. Oddly enough, Oregon is the only city on this list. A list like this would have had several Oregon cities about 5 years ago, but in 2014, they legalized weed, and everyone seems to be okay with everything now. I don't know what it is. They just lay back and relax. It's no big deal anymore. But Salem, Oregon is depressing. Number 6, Modesto, California. Modesto is located an hour south of the state capital, Sacramento. Most people in Modesto take melatonin and dream about the frozen tundra every single night. The heat may be one of the reasons people hate living here. Modesto is hot and it's dry. During the summer months, it's common for the temperatures to rise into the triple digits and stay there a while. And in winter, the temperatures may be dropped to the mid-60s. So it's always pretty warm there, if not blazing hot. The only way to escape the heat here is to leave, preferably in a refrigeration truck sitting on a box of fudgesicles in your underwear. 13% of the residents in Modesto are divorced, and the overall crime rate in Modesto is 80% higher than the national average, and the schools blow. There's so many things about Modesto that could bring a person down, but knowing that your kids and your stuff aren't safe have to be two of the highest ones on that list. Number 5, Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas is an amazing place to visit. However, living there is a little depressing. Every day you see things that most people consider part of the decline of society that have become the norm in Vegas. Addiction is the main reason people are depressed in Las Vegas, not just gambling. They have the full spectrum of addiction here. Las Vegas is a great city with good people. It just doesn't work out for a whole bunch of other people. Every time I've walked down the strip in Vegas, I've seen someone crying, not just some girl that broke up with her boyfriend. I'm talking grown men sometimes. Vegas is also the divorce capital of the world, and about 17% of the marriages there end in divorce. That is why there's so many lawyers in Las Vegas representing people in desperate need of a divorce and sunblock, apparently. Number 4, San Bernardino. San Bernardino, California is located east of Los Angeles, right outside the Angeles National Forest. The writer Hunter S. Thompson called it San Berdu all the time. I grew up calling it San Berdu myself. This is a very miserable place to live. Drive through the place and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you ask Siri to find you a good place to stay in San Berdu, it'll suggest driving an hour out of your way to Big Bear Lake. If you tell Siri to find a good place to stay in San Bernardino, it'll suggest getting in a time machine and going back to the 1950s, because that was really about the last time this place was a really nice place to live. The whole town is just a big bowl of depression. About 15% of all married couples here end up divorcing. Crime, schools, unemployment, and housing all contribute to the general suck and depression that is San Bernardino. If you've ever thought about living here, make sure you go alone. Just be miserable by yourself. Misery really doesn't need company. So don't bring a wife, don't bring a girlfriend. Just go by yourself and enjoy the depression, if that's what you're into. Number 3, Rockford, Illinois. Rockford is not a nice place you'd want to move to with your family. This city in northern Illinois has a violent crime rate of about 1,660 crimes reported per every 100,000 residents every single year. It's continuously ranked one of the top cities with the most violent crimes. Crime runs so rampant here that home values are actually about $100,000 less than what they would be if there wasn't so much crime. Rockford is one of the leaders in the country when it comes to single-parent households. Rockford can also be found on worst cities list all over the internet, normally towards the top. This is the type of place you move to when you miss the sounds of gunfire heard in the military. You know, you can't sleep at night unless you hear a little gunfire. Move to Rockford. It is said that half the city suffers from either PTSD or depression. The percentage of people that are actually divorced here is almost 15%. It is estimated that the population of Rockford has decreased by 20,000 people since the 2010 census. People are leaving this place in droves, and for good reason. It's a depressing city. Number 2, Macon, Georgia. Macon is a place you go to when you want to be miserable. There's this thing called the misery score, and the misery score for Macon is 87, and that's out of 100. The higher the score, the bigger the suck the city is. If you enjoy heat and humidity, that's one thing you may love here. But most people don't, and Macon is a horrible place for these people. During the hottest times of the summer, temperatures during the day will rise up into the mid-90s and fall to the high 70s at night. However, the temperature change is hardly noticeable since the humidity is about 95%. So you sweat a whole lot here. Crime, housing, and unemployment are really depressing stats in Macon. According to the 2010 census, the median household income in the city was about $28,000, and that's compared to the state average of about $50,000. It is estimated that that number of $28,000 only climbed $2,000 in the last 9 years. We'll find out next year in the census. And the state average jumped up around $5,000 is the estimate, so Macon's not keeping up. There are a lot of really depressed people here that can't afford air conditioning. Their livability score is 65. Don't move to Macon, Georgia. And number 1, Detroit, Michigan. Now, who didn't see this one coming? According to bestlife.com, Detroit is the most depressing city in America. The city scores a 99.6 on the misery scale. It's no surprise why. The poverty rate here is about 35%, while the unemployment rate is right around 9% right now. Life is rough in Detroit unless you have a security job, but considering there isn't a lot of things in the city worth securing, so that's not really high in demand. One way you can literally see the depression of a city is by looking at the population decline and the amount of vacant housing. In 1990, there were over 1 million people living in the city of Detroit. That's just the city, not the metro area. So stop typing, census nerds. Since 1990, the population has dropped to just over 600,000. From over a million, 600,000. A good percentage of the housing parcels in the city are vacant, with abandoned lots making up more than half of the total residential lots in the city, with at least 70,000 abandoned buildings, 31,000 empty houses, and 90,000 vacant lots. Detroit has a livability score of 56. It is sad that Detroit has gotten to this. I mean, they've done some great things in the downtown area, and hopefully that'll spread. I've talked about this before, that they're trying to make some progress, but they just have such a long way to go. It's just sad to live there. All right, so that's my top 10 most depressing cities in the United States. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Don't forget all the links below. Don't forget to give a like. Leave me a comment. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Everybody, have a great day. Be nice to each other.